Today's movie recap is The Greatest Beer Run Ever, a 2022 drama based on a true story. In Inwood, New York City in 1967, former Marine John "Chicky" Donahue is a slacker merchant seaman buying drinks for his friends. In the morning, he arises with a hangover as his father becomes increasingly dissatisfied with his nighttime antics. Back at his childhood home, he defends his drinking practices while bragging about his life as a merchant mariner. As he has grown weary of supporting him, his father is adamant about sending him out, much to his mother's disapproval. Just as tensions at the dinner table rise, her sister Christine informs the family that Johnny, a neighborhood acquaintance briefly drafted into the Vietnam War, has perished. In contrast to Chicky and their father, who also served and considered Johnny a hero who died for his country, she is adamantly opposed to the ongoing war in the region. The colonel is distraught at the bar and lowers the flag to half-staff in honor of the deceased soldier. Chicky regrets Johnny's death because he believes he was too young to join the military and be slain in combat. After further deliberation, the friends attend the funeral, where Noodle delivers the news that another close friend, Tommy Minogue, whom Chicky persuaded to enlist, has been reported missing in action. Before the New Year's Eve ball drops in New York City, this makes him highly emotional as he remembers the happy moments they shared. After the funeral, Chicky and his companion Red are surprised to discover Christine participating in an anti-Vietnam War demonstration, displaying their contempt for President Lyndon B. Johnson. Red provokes one of the men, who knocks him out with a single strike. Chicky engages in a brief physical altercation with the dissidents until the authorities intervene. The friends at the bar discuss how they can assist their enlisted peers. The colonel makes a brilliant suggestion that Chicky is enthusiastic about, thanking the soldiers with beer cans. He plans to travel alone to South Vietnam and deliver drinks personally. The colonel fully supports Chicky's distinctive endeavor by offering him a large duffel bag, despite Chicky's companions appearing skeptical. The next day, after receiving a severe request from Mrs. Collins to deliver something to her military son, Chicky appears to reverse course. His peers acknowledge that he does not always carry out his plans, so they expect him to give up. His family has been receiving gifts for Chicky if he visits the soldiers. Christine finds the proposal peculiar, trying to comprehend how it will inspire the soldiers. Later, Mrs. Minogue arrives and gives him a rosary to give to Collins if he finds him. This solidifies his decision to proceed with it. The next day, he inquires about ships departing for Vietnam with the superior. By simple good fortune, the cargo ship is leaving and requires an oiler, so he requests to join and rushes home to fill his duffel bag with alcohol. Christine expresses her concern that he is engaging in behavior that could lead to his death. He maintains his position while considering the soldiers' welfare and demonstrating to her that he can do more than drink his life away. Chicky, in his capacity as an oiler, boards the ship. Arriving after 2 months at sea, he pleads with the commander for permission to disembark for 3 days to search for one of the drafted soldiers, Ricky Duggan, whom he claims is his long-lost stepbrother. Later, he exits the ship carrying a duffel bag and inquires about the 127th MP Company, of which Tommy Collins is a member. He then finds Collins, who is ecstatic to see him, and they embrace while Chicky hands a few cans to his friends, and they drink all night. He gives Collins the $33 his father left him to pay his poker debt. Chicky is reprimanded for delivering the bottles by the unit's superior officer, who suspects him of being a CIA agent when he discloses that he is traveling alone. Collins begs Chicky to leave while he still can, believing he is not taking the conflict seriously. Arthur Coates, a photographer, disrupts Chicky and insults the president, which causes Chicky to insist that Arthur show him respect. He learns that the media have become so disillusioned with the conflict that they are willing to expose all of its adverse effects. As he discloses his intention to bring them alcohol, he suggests they begin relaying more positive news to support American soldiers. Consequently, using his CIA contacts, he hitches a ride on an army caravan to the HOA airbase and flies to Da Nang Air Base. With the help of Lieutenant Habershaw, he is invited to lunch at the Officers' Club. When he arrives, he asks the commanders for Rick Duggan. Duggan's sergeant dispatches him to report to the command post, compelling him to sprint through enemy fire. When Chicky surprises him, Duggan reacts fiercely, but permits him to join his squad on the battlefield. From the trenches, he panics as he ultimately experiences what it is like to be involved in the Vietnam War. Chicky distributes beers to the soldiers at night to soothe them while they formulate their defensive strategy. The squad takes a photo with him before parting ways in the morning. He bids a fond farewell and boards a helicopter. After the ordeal, he safely lands at Quantum Airport and makes arrangements for transportation to Saigon. The officer explains that he will risk abandoning his post to accompany him to Pleiku Air Base. Realizing that CIA agents are pursuing him, he slips out of the airbase by climbing a fence and hides in the jungle until they give up the pursuit. A short time later, a local child playing with a ball sobs after mistaking him for a combatant. Her mother abruptly emerges from the field and takes her, and Kevin Looney McClune, an old acquaintance, finds him. He rambles about his incredible voyage up to this point, including that the CIA is on his trail. McClane's troop gives him a ride despite orders to proceed in the opposite direction of where he is going. The old acquaintance places him on a helicopter, and upon takeoff he tosses his beer. The next day, upon returning to Saigon, Chicky catches a ride on a motorcycle to the port. Unfortunately, he discovers from the port commander that his ship departed for Manila. Hugh is directing traffic while wishing him well for the Vietnamese New Year when he searches for him on the crowded streets, having exhausted all other options. He accompanies him to the U.S. Embassy and expresses interest in visiting him. He enters the embassy, where a female attendant relays a message from the commander informing him that if he is still alive, a ship is waiting to pick him up. She assists him in booking a flight from Manila the following day. He returns to the Caravel Hotel, relieved, to spend the night with a drink. He presents a photograph as evidence that he completed his mission. Arthur is impressed and decides to buy him a round of drinks as they discuss how the U.S. government's continual cover-up of the conflict does not help the public's perception of which side is prevailing. Suddenly, Chicky sees what he believes to be a distant fireworks display, but it turns out to be a barrage of gunfire. As the Vietnamese assault unexpectedly, he and the photographer flee to the streets. The duo attempted to hitch a journey, but their jeep was destroyed by a vehicle bomb that severed one of the soldiers' limbs. He and Arthur could escape the burning embassy and seek refuge from hostile fire outside. Chicky reveals that he received more than he bargained for when the two temporarily seek refuge in an apartment. The two men depart the war-torn streets the following morning and return to the embassy, where other correspondents document the incident. Suddenly, everyone witnesses a distant, tremendous detonation. The two drive toward the observed detonation. Arthur explains that the military would instead fabricate an entrance opening in the embassy's wall, then acknowledge that the attack was carried out from within. As they approach the location, Chicky, posing as a press member, searches the infirmary for his injured companion Bobby. As they stroll around the base, he offers him a beverage, despite his reluctance to accept it. Before departing, he attempts to induce Arthur to accompany him, but Arthur declines because he believes he must continue his duties as a war correspondent. Later that night, Chicky arrives at the base, revealing his true identity to Lieutenant Habershaw, only to further persuade the officer that he is a CIA agent. Tommy's corpse is recovered as he prepares for the United States, and Bobby affirms his death. When he returns home, he shares his new perspective on the conflict with his companions and the colonel at the bar. Before drinking with them, he visits Mrs. Minogue to deliver the rosary beads intended for Tommy. Chicky sobs as he accepts guilt for Tommy's death, but Mrs. Minogue forgives him with an embrace, praising him for undertaking this challenging mission. The story ends with Chicky visiting the park, where he sits among the memorials for veterans and discusses his experience with his sister Christine. After a joyful reunion, he gives her the last can of beer from his cargo bag, knowing he has accomplished the impossible. Collins, Dugan, McClune, and Bobby returned from Vietnam and eventually gave up alcohol, albeit intermittently. Chicky Donahue graduated from secondary school and completed a degree at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the like button. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.